Hey everybody, so I'm here today to wrap up my December 2023 reading. I can't believe that 2023 is over and that 2024 has started, but I read some really good books that I can't wait to tell you all about. So let's get started. Hey everybody, and welcome back to my channel. It's Russell with Ink and Paper Blog. How are you all doing today? As always, I hope you're happy, I hope you're healthy, I hope you're safe, and of course, I hope you're reading an amazing book or two or three or four. So I had a pretty good reading month in the month of December, but you know, you're always wrapping up so much, getting ready for the holidays, people are going on vacation and traveling and calls and all that kind of stuff. So it was a very interesting reading month, but I do have some amazing books to tell you about, so we might as well get started. Get out your pen, get out your paper, get out your Goodreads, however you keep track of your TBR. If you are so able, please order these books from your local independent bookstore. I do think most of these books are out. I'm pretty sure all of them are out, and all of them are worth your time. Or if you're a library user, get your library to get you a copy as soon as possible. So you know, with these wrap-up videos, I try to start with the book that I consider my favorite read of the month. And for me, this month, that was Day by Michael Cunningham. From Random House. I have only read a few Michael Cunningham books, The Hours, of course, and one other one. So I didn't know really what to expect, but I did know that Ryan from Read by Ryan is a huge Michael Cunningham fan. So I was super excited about this book. Let's say, so this book it takes place over 3 days, the same day, I think it's like April 5th, 2019, 20, and 21. The start of the book, we meet a family, a mother and a father and their 2 children who live in a house, and the brother of the mother, that sounds funny, lives upstairs in sort of like this pseudo apartment. But they've asked him to move out, and in moving out so that they can move their son up to that space, he can have his own space. And right now, the brother is searching for a place to live. He's a 6th grade teacher, I believe. Money's tight, trying to find some place that really meets those expectations. And we learn really quickly that this is a very close-knit set of adults. The brother and sister are very, very close. They're sort of almost codependent on one another. The brother-in-law husband relies on the brother to sort of give him that sense of self he needs as he restarts his music career. And the uncle, the brother, is very much involved and loves his nephew and niece very, very much. And so this whole moving out thing is causing all of this stress. And as we sort of learn about this family, we then transition to 2020, where COVID hits, and the brother is now in Iceland. He went there after he moved out. He sort of made some decisions and changes in his life. And we learn very, very quickly that he's been stuck in Iceland and the family is stuck at home. And then the last section is really the repercussions of the COVID epidemic and how it affects this family. I thought this book is just so beautifully written. I know I talked about this in my top 10 reads video. It just has some of the most beautiful sentences that I read all year long. Highly recommend. Day by Michael Cunningham, out from Random House. You can get your hands on it right now. So as you know, we are doing something a little different on my channel, where my husband actually puts a picture of the book up here the whole entire time. I hold it up real briefly, but sometimes I forget to pull it down. So I apologize if it looks strange, me doing this with the book when there's a big video picture there. I'm going to get better at it, I promise. I have been recommended this next book by my friend Paul 100,000 times. And I was actually driving to work one day, and I have a long commute, so I was like, you know what, I just need a quick audio. I found it, and I listened to All Systems Red by Martha Wells, the first book in the Murder Bot Diaries series. And boy, was Paul right. This is one fun ride. So there are 7 books in this series now. They're all very, very short. I think the audiobook itself is like 3 hours at 1.0. So it takes nothing but a minute, really. And it is so worth it. So we meet Murderbot and we find out very quickly that they have sort of superseded their programming, and they sort of have an independence that is not usually found in their kind, I'm going to say. They are on a planet with a geological survey team where they are paid basically to protect this team, and they find out something has gone wrong on this survey, and he, she, they, I don't know, I guess they're genderless, so I'm going to use they. The narrator's he, so in my brain, you know how it all works. But yeah, no, I thought this book was fantastic. I loved the world building. The main character, Murderbot, is so interesting. I went out and bought the second one right away. I'm very interested to see where this all goes. I know many people have read and loved this series, and I've heard it only gets better with time. So my husband is actually listening to the first one, and we're going to read the second one together. So that is Martha Wells's All Systems Red, Book 1 in the Murderbot Diaries. Hopefully I did okay selling that. That was a very weird ramble that I just did. You know, I did say that all of the books were out, but this is actually the only book that is not out, and that is 10 Bridges Ive Burnt by Purnell. This is a memoir in verse. It comes out from MCD on February 12th of 2024. It is a short little book where we learn a lot about sort of what makes Brontez who they are today, and where they came from, and sort of like their philosophical journey of where they're headed. The book is, if you are one for poetry, I think that it does. It's very freeform. It's very avant-garde. It's very modern. It does cover all sorts of topics, drugs and sex and relationships and abuse and all sorts of different stuff like that. So it can be a little bit triggering at times if those things are triggering to you, but it's just a very unique book. I'd love for people to read it and then talk to me about it. I just remember being really blown away by the experiences and the way that he articulated them. But it was very, very different than anything that I've ever read before. So that's 10 Bridges Ive Burnt by Purnell, a memoir in verse, out 2/14/24. Okay. Then, you know what? I needed to change it up. I was actually going through a period where I couldn't really pick anything up. Nothing was really working for me. That happens to all of us, right? And I was, excuse me, going through my shelf, and I was like, you know what? I always enjoy Elizabeth Strout. And I have had Lucy by the Sea on my shelf for quite some time. This is out from Random House. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to pick it up. I'm going to start it. I'm going to read it. And boy, did it break whatever slump I was in, because Elizabeth Strout, I don't know how to explain her writing, because I don't want to say that it's simple, because I don't think that that's the right term, but it just has an ease to it that makes it so readable and so enjoyable. Now, this is, I think, the fourth book in the Lucy Barton series. And here is the pandemic novel. Lucy and her ex-husband, her ex-husband's a scientist, William. The last book was all about him and his life. William is a scientist, so he sort of sees COVID coming. So he literally comes to Lucy, says, we've got to get out of New York City, and buys or rents this house in Maine. And they go there. And that's where they're going to lock down. And basically, we see the pandemic through Lucy with her interactions not only with William, but also with the state of Maine, who they get a lot of pushback telling them as New Yorkers to go home, and they're trying to find a sense of home. So there's that juxtaposition. They are very worried about their daughters. One daughter is having a very tough time in her relationship. The other daughter and her husband go to a house that's been abandoned, not abandoned, that is empty, because his family is actually stuck in Florida, and they go there to be safe. And then all these other things happen. She deals with many of the things that people had to deal with in the pandemic, family returning and dealing with people who didn't believe that they needed to get the vaccine, or didn't believe that COVID was real, and then they get sick and all that kind of stuff. But really, it comes down to this relationship between Lucy and William, and how the pandemic and this closeness of bringing them together changes the dynamic of their 20-something year relationship. I loved it. I think it's beautiful. It's not my favorite of the Lucy Barton novels. I think O. William just really blew me out of the water. But I just love this story. I love her writing. I love everything about it. So I highly recommend Lucy by the Sea by Elizabeth Strout. Read all three of them. My Name is Lucy Barton. Is It Anything's Possible? O. William. And then Lucy by the Sea. You won't be disappointed. It's a great journey to go on. Next was one of my most anticipated books of the entire year. I am such, and by my shirt you can probably tell, I am a huge Heartstopper fan. So Alice Oseman's Heartstopper Volume 5 came out. I'm a fan of the show. I'm a fan of the graphic novels. I'm a fan of Nick and Charlie and Tao and Elle and all of them. I'm a fan of all of them. And this was just what I needed. I think that I'm such a fan of this world that it really does nothing wrong. Charlie and Nick's relationship is sort of evolving to the next level. They are teenage boys. Nick is getting ready to go to college. Charlie has one more year left. They're dealing with sort of like, when do you take that next step, and the nervousness and the excitement and the fear that goes along with, you know, discovering yourself sexually as a person. Charlie gains a bit more confidence in this one about himself and his image. And Nick learns that he originally was going to make decisions about his future based upon his relationship with Charlie. And is that really the right thing to do? It's just so sweet and wonderful. And Alice Oseman is able to tackle very tough topics in a way that just is magical. I highly recommend the whole series. I will be a stan of Heartstopper beginning to end. I adore them so very, very much. And I know that the next one is the last one. And yes, I am very, very sad about that. Next comes one of my other books that was actually in my top 10 video. That is Family Meal by Bryan Washington, out from Riverhead. I won't talk too much about how much I love this book because I gush about it a bit in my top 10 video. Bryan Washington wrote a short story collection called Lot, Memorial, and then this. I've loved everything that he has put out. I always wish I could tell him. He doesn't allow you to tag him in Instagram posts, but I do want him to know I love him, and I think he's a phenomenal writer. This is the story of a man who deals with the loss of his partner in Los Angeles after a tragic event and returns home to Houston and really just sort of dives into drugs and sex as a way of escaping dealing with his grief. We wind up learning a lot about his history. He's lost his parents, and for a long time he lived with his best friend and their family, and that friend comes back into his life. And it's about like chosen family, the ups and downs of chosen family and friendship, the sexual tension that can occur between two gay men trying to find themselves. It's about secrets. It's about food. There's a lot of food in this, a lot of delicious sounding food. Bryan Washington, both in Memorial and this one, writes about food like no other. And he just tackles being a gay man in such an authentic way, dealing with sort of just the issues that come at you as you realize maybe you have more of a family than you thought or less of a family than you thought. It's really great. Yeah, he is just a brilliant, brilliant writer. So that's Family Meal by Bryan Washington. Highly recommend. Okay, so at that point, I didn't know what I was going to do for the rest of December. I was picking up some books, nothing was working. And then I recorded with the Book Cougars for the 4th annual top 10 list that I did with them. And Emily of the Book Cougars brought up one of her books from last year that I had actually bought because of how well she talked about it in the top 10. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to pick up The Mad Woman's Ball by Victoria Moss. I have it. Why haven't I read it? And I'll tell you right now, I started it, and next thing I knew, I was like 60, 70 pages in. I didn't get up from what I was doing. This is set in 1885 Paris. It's really the story of two women and the effects that a mental... I'm going to call it a mental health facility, but that's not what it is in 1885. It is an asylum. Basically, this book really dives into the fact that asylums were a place for men to place women when they just didn't know or want to or had a grudge against them. There are two main characters. The first main character is Genevieve. She's actually like sort of like the head nurse. She runs the facility. We find out very quickly that she's lost her sister. She continues to rely for many, many years, and she writes letters to her every night or so, and that her life is really bought into this facility. And then we meet Eugene, I'm thinking that's how you say it. I am terrible at French. She's from a wealthy middle-class family, but she can talk to ghosts. Ghosts talk to her. And because of the fear and stigma that this places on the family, the father puts her in this mental health facility. The Mad Woman's Ball itself is like this, it's such a, like a ridiculous thing that every year they put on this ball where all of these women who have been basically put into this asylum, which is basically a prison, from prostitutes to people who really have, women who really have mental health issues, to people that you know have medical issues like epilepsy and all of that sort of stuff. But this ball is put on so society sort of comes in and gawks at them, and they earn money that way. They're invited, and things happen. Eugenia should never be there. She has nothing wrong with her other than she truly can speak to ghosts. And this sort of breaks that wall down for Genevieve, and they create sort of a friendship together. The ending of it is surprising and quite heartwarming in the weirdest way possible. I really liked it, so thank you, Emily, for putting it back on my radar. I appreciate it. If you the Book Cougars, listen to their podcast, listen to us talk every year about over 30 books every time, and you will not walk away with at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 books on your TBR. Okay, so last but not least, I just had the last 2 days of 2023, and I always start a new book on 2024, so I knew I couldn't read anything too long. So I read a graphic novel that I had on my shelf for a long time, The Last Unicorn by Peter S. Beagle, and I want to give credit to the artists, so hold on one second, because I don't know. So the adaptation is by Peter B. Gillis. The art is by Renee DeLiz. The inks and colors by Ray Dillon. The lettering by Robbie Robbins, Neil Utaki, Chris Moiri, and Sean Lee. The reason I say that is The Last Unicorn is sort of a classic children's fairy tale book. I actually first ran into this by an old movie that I watched many, many times when I was younger. Maybe some of you have seen it, and I remember it vividly. And so I bought this graphic novel randomly, and so I picked it up. The story is of a unicorn who believes herself to be the last. She leaves her protective forest to go on a journey. She is magically transformed into a woman, and it's a lot about the harm humanity does to the natural world and all those sort of things. It is just as charming and dark as I remembered it to be. It is a very dark children's story, if I'm being honest with you. The art is, let me try to show you some of the art something that's not so scary. It is just gorgeous, the art. And let me see, I'll hold this one up for you right there. Just really, really beautiful. It's beautiful, and it's a beautiful story. I really loved it. It was a fun, quick read, and that's The Last Unicorn, Peter S. Beagle. Credit to everyone I read in the beginning there, because that graphic novel would not be the same without the artists. Last but not least, all my videos have been running like 20 minutes because I'm a talker nowadays. How did that happen? I talked about these books when they arrived, but New Directions, which is a fantastic independent publisher, had done a series of golden books, which were basically like short stories by very famous people that they made to look like those golden books we used to read when we were children. And I had read, I don't remember if it was Bar and Books or... was it Jaden? I can't remember. Someone had talked about this one. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to pick it up. It's 55 pages. And so I read The English Understand Wool by Helen DeWitt out from New Directions. Y'all, this is a 55-page punch in the gut. It is so, so good. Yes, I just slapped my leg. It's that good. It's a story of a young girl. She's about 17 years old. She's out to lunch with her mother. She's lived a very affluent lifestyle. They talk about all sorts of stuff. And her mother gets a call, and the next day her mother disappears, and the authorities show up to tell her that her parents actually stole her and a bunch of money when she was a child, and everything is in sort of disarray. And she finds out very quickly that her story is reached international levels, and she's offered a book deal. So we're sort of watching her write the book about her experience, right? This 17-year-old character is so well drawn and so dark and smart and so good. I don't want to ruin it, because I think as you read the story, you sort of start to realize that no one's getting a one-up on someone who's already ahead of them, if that makes sense. I loved it. I thought the last part of it was so good. Highly, highly recommend it. Please read The English Understand Wool by Helen DeWitt. Get it from your library. Check it out. It's a beautiful set from New Directions. Buy the whole set. I think I'm going to try to read more of them this year. Loved it so very, very much. So that is my December wrap up. Let me do this for you and see if you can see all those books. A little bit of thin in there, so hard to read. As always, if you're a return subscriber, I could not do this without you. If you are new to my channel, I say thank you. I hope you subscribe and hit that button. And as always, I encourage you to read globally, shop locally, and until next time, I wish you happy reading. Bye, everyone.